Thank you so much, Freya. That was absolutely beautiful. Welcome to the Anchorage Lutheran Concert Series. My name is Tamara McCoy. I just have a few announcements for those of you that haven't been here before. We have 2 sets of bathrooms in the building. One set is down the set of stairs by the door you first came in, and the next set is out this exit door. In both cases, the women's is first and the ladies are at the end. Please no food or drink in the sanctuary, water only. Please turn your cell phones off. We are recording and live streaming this in a couple of different ways. So also make sure your vibrate is off as well. These concerts are free, but we graciously hope that you'll provide a donation to help offset the expense of our wonderful performer and presenter this evening. If you'd like to be on the Anchorage Lutheran Concert Series emailing list, there are some forms in the back by the donation box, and all you have to do is write your name and very cleanly print your email address so that I get it right. Without further ado.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for coming here in this nice evening. So I suppose we will find something new about a very well-known person, Tchaikovsky. So I'm traveling all around the world, and his music is recognized everywhere, at each corner of the world. And when people like his music, sometimes they try to find out who is that person who gave us this music. And I'm trying to tell about him, and I would assure you that that was a very, very interesting person. So I can talk weeks about him. We're limited in time, but I will try to tell a little bit more about his personality, his childhood, his musical part of life, and the connection to America. But if once you decide to learn more, I will tell you probably which books is good to read about him. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, who is the lecturer today? I'm a relative of Tchaikovsky, and I used to be an engineer by education, so I'm not a historian, not a musician, not a musicologist. And some years ago, it just came to me, to my head, that I have to study more and to bring to people more. And this happens maybe 10, 12 years ago. And after that, I started to travel. And after that, more than 1,000 speeches already done, and many, many countries and cities, maybe more than 70 cities in total. And I work in archives, so I bring something new. I discover a lot of new things, and I also collect all possible photographs of him from different parts of the world. I'm looking for relatives in all the countries, and I found a lot. Maybe in total is about 120 today. And I bring even original photographs today with me from our family archive. So if you wish, you can take a picture of yourself with the original 19th century picture of Tchaikovsky after this event. You're very welcome. Next, please. Next, please. Sorry. Sorry, yeah. I'm watching my notebook. So here I start from there are 2 covers of the same book. So one was printed in UK, one in US. And this is, if you can read there at the very bottom of that one in the middle, it's written autobiography by Tchaikovsky. But he didn't write any autobiography. So how come is that? My grandmother completed a set of letters written by him to members of his family, where he says what he liked, what he disliked, what he would like, what he wished to get to, and so on. And this set sounds like autobiography because Tchaikovsky writes by himself what he needs or want or dislike in this life. And when you read all this set, it comes out like an autobiography. It's a very thick book like this, maybe 600 pages, maybe more. And I would like to read one sentence from that book. Tchaikovsky writes to one of his relatives such a thing that I am much more a personage here in the US rather than in Russia. Isn't it strange? So when he came here to America, unexpectedly, he found that he is a very popular person, despite on two things. One, that time we didn't have any kind of record music. So there was no way to send a disc or to send an MP3 or whatever. And the second thing, that he never been in the US before his first visit. So how come he became popular without visiting and without records? So that was an interesting story. And when we study a story like that, we don't just go to the past and waste our time. We get information from the past, put in our head, and perhaps this will come out in a very proper moment in our life. So the more interesting thing from the history we put in our head, the more possibility we have that something will be repeated in our life with our years on our path when we live in this life. So when we study biography of famous people, we help ourselves to build our live our life in the future. So next slide, please. I would like to draw your attention to the family which gave us this genius. So here on the left, we see a very first picture of Tchaikovsky family. It was taken in 1848, and Tchaikovsky himself was born 1840 and died 1893. So he lived only 53 years. And this photograph taken when he was 8, he is a boy on the very left of that picture. And there is a family of 1849, and after this photograph, after 2 years, 2 more boys were delivered. So is it a large family or not? So normally when I speak with youth people, I ask them, is it a large family? They say, yes, very large. I said, no, that time that was not large. 7 people, 7 children or 10 children, it was not that much as we understand now. And what is the reason why that time they had much more kids than we have today? I suppose that that time the quantity of children was decided not here but there by the heaven, by the God. And now we calculate how many children we have to have. So because we have this salary, because we have this quantity of rooms in our flat or house or whatever. So and I hope that one day we, all of us on the earth, we will come back to those times when the God decide how many kids we have to have in our family. So what I can tell about this family, that this family was based on love. This is very important. And love itself, from my opinion, is a source of success of all the kids who grow there. And not only Tchaikovsky on the left, but all the boys here, they all achieved very high-level positions in the society in very different directions. One of them was a military navy. Another one was a big boss in railways. And railways, those times, railways brought about 40% of economy. So it was a very important part. Another one was a senator of Russia, so very top level politician, and so on. So all of them achieved very high level results, And I suppose this is a family which, when we study this family, we can bring better understanding what is really needed in the family and how important is love and how to keep this love and what is real love to our kids. Because I suppose that most of us, and myself as well, we all love our children and we would like to build them a good career, good life, wealthy life, and so on. And we do our best to direct them to a proper university, proper place to live, proper company to work, and so on. But is it really what they need? And when we study the history of this family, we can think about, are we right in our very good deeds with our children? For example, the boy on the left, Piotr Tchaikovsky, from a very, very childhood, from his 4, he told that music comes to his head. He didn't know what to do. He just said, I don't know what to do. I have music which is coming to my head. Help me, what to do? So his parents knew about this from the very childhood. What did they provide him? They provided him a musical teacher, and some years he was trained with piano, playing on the piano. And then when he was 10 years old, they parents sent him to a very prestigious college of jurisprudence, because to be a lawyer, it's always been good. So they loved him. They wanted him good career, good life. And they sent to the very best place. But his soul, his heart, was not in jurisprudence. It was given to the music. But he respected his parents, and he went there, and he stayed there for 9 years. So 9 years of his life spent for jurisprudence to study. And then he worked as a official person in the Ministry of Jurisprudence of Russia for several years. And only after that, he decided to go to music, because that time, when he was 23, the very first conservatory was open in Russia. And all and everybody were against this idea to leave the government service and to go to music. And there is several explanations of that. First explanation, which is difficult to understand for us now in the 21st century, that noble person that time could not be a musical player, could not be a musical artist. For noble person, it is good to know music, to play music, to love music, but not to take it as your job, as your career, because that was not for noble people. So that was one thing against. Another thing, that all his family, his father and uncle and brothers and others, they all were serving to the government in different directions, and they didn't want to lose this person to a musical life, because that was a very first students who just came to the conservatory, and there was nobody to ask, how good is this conservatory? What I will get there, and who I become after I'm graduated from the conservatory. Despite on all these things, he decided to leave government service and went to conservatory. And this, I suppose, is one of fact which we can keep in mind. And once you decide to read a biography of Tchaikovsky, of any author, especially of American and European authors, and you will find there for sure that they all tell that Tchaikovsky had a very weak character. He was a very, very unstable, very weak, very nervous, and so on. But I will put a lot of facts where you can understand that he had very strong character, and he always achieved what he wanted to achieve, especially in his musical part of life. So this sample tells us that not always our love of parents makes something good for our children. What is good, what was done by his father, that father was against this idea, but he didn't prohibit to change the government service to the musical education and then musical life. So for that, of course, we thank the father. And who knows, would we know the lawyer Tchaikovsky? Probably we wouldn't hear this name, but all the world now knows the musician Tchaikovsky. And I say musician Tchaikovsky because he was not only a composer, actually. I will tell you later about that. And now I would try, next slide, please. I would try to enlarge a little bit our knowledge about genealogy. And here we have another family name, Davidovs. And then we will get another family name, von Meck, which I have. And how does it work? Why one person with one family is talking about other families, how they are related? And here I would ask you to imagine a, let's say, a map. So we put a point here, it's myself or yourself, and then we draw two things like mother and father, and then our mother and father, they also have mother and father, and so on. So if we draw this scheme for 7 generations, we will have 256 points of our direct ancestors. Only 7 generations. 7 generations means about 2 centuries. So it's not that deep. For example, the line of Davidov, of myself, is about 35 generations, I know. It's down to 15th century. Von Meck down to 15th century. So it's much longer. So it's bigger quantity, right? But even with this, within these 7 generations, what we can find out? What do you think of these 256 direct ancestors of you? How many of them have the same family name, last name, what you have in your documents when you were born? How many people have the same family? What do you think? Family name. From 256. Guess. Maybe 500, maybe 1. From 256, only 7 have the same last name. And so 256 minus 7 is 249. 249 of them have different family names. Imagine? So if you start once to study this, you will get a lot of surprises. Why do we need to do that, actually? I'm not a mystic, I'm an engineer, but I have my own life experience. So what I got from studying the genealogy? When we study about ancestors, we normally try to find out something positive about them because they are our ancestors. If some of them did something not good, we try to forget this, to forgive this, and we, of course, we would like to stress on the good things, yeah, right? Because we respect them, we love them because they are our ancestors. And once you find something good, what is done by some of them or all of them, you have a feeling of thankful to them. And when you start, once you start thank them, you send them the energy of your love. And in some way, even if they are already dead centuries, they got this energy from you. And what happened next? Next, they send this kind of energy to you. And we are not taught how does it work in our life. Nobody tells this in school and anywhere else. But if we try to understand how this, what does this bring to our life, I would say that this brings to us luckiness. So we feel that we became more lucky. So we pick up right choices in our life because they help us to do that in many, many different ways. I can explain many, many samples from my personal life, but probably in your life or other lives it would be totally different. But the main thing is that if we study our ancestors and we send them love, we actually build our future, much better future. So this is why I would suggest you probably or to follow what you already done or to start studying your ancestors, and very soon you will see changes in your life, I suppose. So here, what is this old photograph? So the lady in white is the same lady in white on the, can you shift back? Here on the, you see the girl, the sister in white, yeah, sitting down. And then next one, please. So when she got adult, she got married with one person who was Davidov. And this is a very important part of history of Russia. I cannot explain you right now what is that, but believe me, the Davidovs was very important part of Russia. And those people, in their memory of their family, there is a lot of very important historical facts of Russia, like connection with the Tsar family, like connection with very famous people like Pushkin, for example. I suppose you know this name, and others. So, and they all lived together, and Tchaikovsky visited his sister 28 years. So when he came to her, he spent with her family several weeks or even several months. So this connection was very, very strong. And Tchaikovsky, as well known, he didn't have his own children. So he took her children, so niece and nephew, like his children. So he loved them very much, and he played big role in this family. And several opuses, like Swan Lake, I suppose most of you know Swan Lake, actually was written at the beginning for this family, just for the kids. And then after several years, it changes the name, and it became a famous opus. Next, please. So, and Tchaikovsky not always was a very popular person. By the end of his life, he became very, very well-known person worldwide. But from the very beginning, he was a professor of Moscow Conservatory, trying to write something as a composer, but he didn't have time for that. And thanks God, there is a person, a lady, came to his life, Nadezhda von Meck. She has a German family name because of his husband, but she is Russian, Christian. Nadezhda was born in Smolensk area, whatever. And she loved his music so much at the very beginning of his composing life. He loved so much his music that she started to help him because she wanted more music by Tchaikovsky. And she wrote a letter to him asking to do some job for her, some musical work. He did, she paid a lot of money and so on. She was a very, very, maybe top 10 rich people in Russia, rich family in Russia. They earned their money building railways, very first railways in Russia. And since these contacts, they became friends, very, very close friends, even intimate friends. And they wrote to each other in total 1,220 letters. It's the biggest in Russian history set of letters, so it's huge. Several of them were up to 8 pages, so very big. And they became the closest friends, but they decided from the very beginning that they would never ever meet it in person. And they kept this. So within 14 years of their friendship, they never met. There was a couple of exceptions. They met in the theater, they met somewhere else, but they didn't speak to each other. Just, hello, that's it. So this is a story. Is it good or bad? Is it, I don't know, strange or whatever? The fact is that everything what they discuss it is written. So we can read. We don't need to guess what they discussed that time. And that person is very interesting, the lady, because she understood music very well. So she spoke with the composer, with the professor, with the author of many books of music. So Tchaikovsky had, academic knowledge about music. But they spoke on the same level. For some reason, she understood music so well that she could speak with composer on the same level for 14 years. Thanks to this relation, now we can learn a lot about biography of Tchaikovsky. It's about 80% of what we know about him comes from this correspondence. And also for musicians is very important because he opened his secrets only to her. For example, if we go to ballet or opera, we easily can understand what is this about because we read the text and we know what is that on the stage, libretto. But if we go to listen symphony, how can we understand what was the idea, what the composer wanted us to know, to learn, to study from this symphony? So they call it program of the symphony. And Tchaikovsky never told to anybody else, even if a lot of people ask him. So he told only to her what is the program of that symphony, or that symphony, or that symphony. So only thanks to this friendship, now the artist can understand better what they have to bring to us, to listeners, through this music. Next slide, please. So, and after three years of their friendship, they decided to merge, to mix their family names, their families. And after 5 years of discussions, there was 2 sons from her side and 4 nieces from her side, from his side. So they decided to, to make a family. And so it happened, and her son married with his niece. And we understand that those pair bring us children, and these children have Tchaikovsky blood and the von Meck blood. You understand? They joined, right? So this is my great-grandfather, grandmother. So I have a similar relation to von Meck's and Tchaikovsky's side. Next slide, please. And coming to trip to America. There was an invitation in 1891 to come to America, and Tchaikovsky was happy to take this invitation. And what was the reason of the invitation? That time, there was a group of musicians who did a big job to find somebody who can build a very new building, very large building for concerts. At the end of 19th century, there was big interest to classical music, but there was very few places to play this music. And there was several people. One of them was Walter Damrosch, conductor, who was trying to find who can finance the new building. So finally they got this person, and they built this building, and then they started to think how to draw attention to the new place, to the new building. And probably all of you know where it's located. The Carnegie Hall, now Carnegie Hall, is located in the downtown of Manhattan today. But that time, that was outside of Manhattan, outside of the city. There was no even roads, so it was far away. And they started to think how to to invite people and how to convince them to come. So they did some marketing researches, I would say, and they picked up the most popular musician in the world of that time. And that appeared Tchaikovsky. So they decided to bring Tchaikovsky because he had very big name in everywhere, also in America. And he not only played his music, conducted his music, but he also conducted music of other composers. And they provided 5-day festival. So a lot of people came, thousands and thousands of people came in the very first days of this Carnegie Hall. So, and that was a very successful grand opening, thanks to this marketing idea to find a very famous person to invite to the grand opening. But there was a story when Tchaikovsky was invited and he was on the way to America. He discovered that his beloved sister died, that lady in white. So she died, and right on the way, Tchaikovsky found out this when he was in France. I must remind you that those times there was no aircrafts, no flights, only through the sea you could reach from Europe to America. So on the way, by the land first, by the railways, he got to the France, and then by the ship, he got to the Americans. And at the very end of the French part of his path, he knew that his sister died, beloved, and he even thought not to go to America. But thinking that it's very important, the grand opening of such a nice building, he convinced himself to come. And of course, his mood was not very, very positive at that time. But he managed his mood, and he gave several concerts in New York and other cities, and he got his very new contact with American listeners of his music, and he was very surprised that his music is very popular in America. And how it became popular? Can you shift to the next slide, please? So this, of course, you recognize the Carnegie Hall. Next, please. So this is a story. There are some people, and I will tell you a story 15 years back. So when Tchaikovsky wrote his first piano concert, you know this first piano concert of Tchaikovsky? Have you ever heard this? It's a very popular opus. When he wrote this opus, he dedicated this concert to the founder and director of Moscow Conservatory, Nikolai Rubinstein. And he asked him to play first. And Nikolai Rubinstein tried to play and said, no, it's impossible to play. It's very, it's a problem to play. It's a technical problem, and no one pianist would be happy to play that. And he said, you have to re-edit everything, or better to write a new one, because it's difficult to re-edit what you have now. And Tchaikovsky said, no, I will not change no one symbol, no one note there. And Rubinstein said, I will not play. And then after that, Tchaikovsky turned to different conductors and players in the world. And one of them in Germany, Hans von Bülow, took this chance and he said, I like this music. I will perform this music. And for some reason, I don't know why, he decided to perform this music in the US, not in Germany. And that was Boston. This is 1875, when he came and performed it first time in Boston. Then the second performance was in New York. And in New York, in the hall, there was Leopold Damrosch, probably you have heard this name, a very, very famous American conductor. And Leopold Damrosch just fell in love with the music of Tchaikovsky, And he wrote to Tchaikovsky a letter asking him to bring more scores to study and to play. And they have friendship for several years, distant friendship, never seen each other. And Leopold Damrosch loved his music so much that he started to promote this music. He played a lot and a lot and a lot everywhere. And Americans liked this music before Tchaikovsky came to here. And then after Leopold Damrosch, his son, Walter Damrosch, also started to promote his music for many, many years. So when Tchaikovsky came here first time, he was really surprised how big his name is here. And he wrote many things, many comments about that, about this surprise, because before he came to America, he visited 15 countries in Europe. 15 countries. He visited many times, many countries in Europe, and his position there was lower than his position here, where he never been. And I will tell you more story after some more music. Thank you. So there are several people on this slide, and I told about Leopold and his son Walter, and who are those two people on the right. So a musical association of players and musicians of those times, they would like to have new building, as I already told, and they were looking for a rich person who could support this idea. And Andrew Carnegie, you probably know this name, of course. He was a big businessman at that time, and after that he was even much bigger. So I don't know, do you know this fact or not? In 1910s, I suppose 1910, stuff like that, his business was about 3% of all the economy of the US. Imagine this scale. So that was a rich person, but he was interested in literature, and he built a lot of libraries in many different cities. And they turned to him, asking him to build a building for music, and he denied. So they started to work, let's say, to convince his wife, Louisa, because she wanted, she liked music and she shared this idea. So after several years, they convinced her that she need to convince him. So finally, this worked. So she convinced him to build this, to finance this building. And I suppose that the very first 6 years of this building, it didn't have any name, and only after 6 years, it became a Carnegie Hall. So now we know this name, and all the rest of the world know the name of the Nobel person because of this, the music hall. So this shows how important is to have people involved in culture. Even today, in the 21st century, I suppose there is no one country in the world, no one economy in the world, which can fully support the art, the music, the painters, and so on. So business need to understand that they need to help to the art. And such examples like Carnegie or like Madame von Meck, they are, they are just showing us how important is that. Because if Nadezhda von Meck didn't help to Tchaikovsky, what would happen? Of course, he would write music, but how many pieces he could write if he didn't have time? So there will be a very smaller side of the quantity of opuses and probably the quality of them. What she did for him, she gave him time. She gave him a lot of money. He was able to get rid of his work, his job in the conservatory, and actually he didn't like to work there. So thanks to some people who helped to the art, we have this art forever. So they spent some money in this one period of life, and we even don't remember them. We cannot remember them because that was very far ago. But until today, we have a possibility to enjoy the music or, I don't know, painting or ballet or whatever. So, and once I got an invitation from Japan. Can you give us 2 lectures? I said, yes. Why not? Why 2 lectures? 1 lecture is to musicians. Okay. And what is the second one? The second one is interesting. They told me that Tchaikovsky is #1 composer in Japan, but he is not Japanese. And they said, come to us, we will gather all the big bosses of all Japanese companies, and you will tell a story of Nadezhda von Meck, who helped to Tchaikovsky. And probably one of these bosses will take this as an example and help to some Japanese composer. And probably after 100 years in Japan, composer #1 became Japanese, not Russian. Okay, so they are smart, these people. Next slide, please. So I would like to show you what is the legacy of Tchaikovsky? He has a full set of his opuses, musical opuses, but this is not what you see on the screen. The full set of his opuses is 97 books. Each of them is like this thick. 97. And remember that he lived only 53 years, and only half of his life he dedicated to music. The first was dedicated to jurisprudence. Imagine every year of his life could give us another book like this, like that, like that. So, and this, what I show, and this 97 books is much more than I can show you with my hands. So it's huge number of books. And this, what he wrote, not with the notes, but with the letters and the capitals. So it's 19 books of his notes, his diaries, his critical articles, his letters to his families, and so on. So 19 books is more than Anton Chekhov has done in his life. So it's a huge legacy. And this is a very interesting stuff, because when you read this, you read not only about music. I suppose I didn't calculate, but my feeling is that only 15% of this dedicated to music, and all the rest dedicated to many, many things, to religion, to philosophy, to literature, to culture, to family relations, to universities, to traveling all around the world, and so on. So when you read these books, you open a history not only of Russia, but of many, many countries, because he traveled a lot, really a lot. For example, in Paris, he came to Paris more than 20 times, to Berlin more than 15 times, to Rome more than 17 times, and so on. And every time he spent weeks there, or maybe months there. So he got a lot of very interesting personal experience, which he shared with different people. And when he came to a museum, for example, to one museum, and he writes to different people about this visit, he writes in a very different way, because he tried to be, let's say, pointed to understanding of this person, of that person, of that person. So when we read now what he wrote about a museum or a performance or a ballet or whatever, we look at this from the very different points of view. So it's very useful, very interesting to read. Unfortunately, not all of them translated into English. So this is why I would say that if we have a choice which biography to read of Tchaikovsky, I would suggest to read a biography written by Russian, because not because Russians or Americans or Germans are better or worse, because Russians can read from here much more than those people who cannot read Russian. And here I bring with me a very new, very short, very new biography written by a very interesting person who have been working in the Museum of Tchaikovsky for 49 years and still there. So next year she will celebrate half a century with Tchaikovsky. And Tchaikovsky is a very difficult person to study, because he changed his mind in many, many cases. For example, if you start from the very beginning and you would like to find out, did he like more Moscow or St. Petersburg, for example? Or did he like Wagner or, I don't know, whatever, Beethoven or whatever? And then you go from the very beginning and you come to number 6 volume, for example, and then you found that I like Moscow, I dislike St. Petersburg, for example. And you put in your writing. And you put in your biography that Tchaikovsky liked Moscow, disliked St. Petersburg, page number whatever, letter number whatever. But if you continue and if you read all these 19 books, you will find that he changed his mind maybe 10 times. So it's very important to read everything to come to any conclusion about this or that or that. So it's very important, and very, very few people were able to read all these 19 books because it's difficult to get them. They were written and printed within 50 years during the Soviet time period. So it's a very rare source of knowledge about him. So this lady read not once, and she has a very particular memory. Everything she read, she remembers forever. So once I spoke with her, of course, I can admit that she knows a lot about Tchaikovsky because she worked 49 years for him. But once we went to the city of Taganrog, where Chekhov was born, and she started to tell me something about Chekhov, like pages and pages and pages from his literature, and said, "When did you prepare for that?" She said, "In 1976, I read all his books and I remember everything." So she has a very particular memory. So as an author, I suppose this is the best author who can tell us everything, what is important in his life. And she did this in this very small book. So if somebody would like to study more about Tchaikovsky, I suppose this is today one of the very best books. Next, please. And those letters and diaries in Russia, many of them, many of them are translated into English. And here I put some phrases from there. I don't know, maybe not all of you can read this, right? It's a very small screen. I didn't know how big is the screen. I could make it with bigger letters, but what is saying here that Tchaikovsky was really surprised about interest to him when he visited here. For example, one person, Romeiko, sent to him every day a set of articles about Tchaikovsky, which were printed every day in many, many newspapers. So every day he was mentioned in tens of newspapers. That was a very special success. Then he was a very modest person. Even if he reached a top popularity worldwide in many, many countries, he was very modest person, and sometimes he asked himself, am I really such a good conductor, or are these Americans exaggerating? So he put these phrases, writing letters to many, many friends and relatives, and this shows us how he was invited here and how he was met here. For example, he mentions that he got dozens, in America you say dozens, dozens of letters from all around America asking him to put his signature as an autograph and send back. So he felt in all the directions that he is very well known. And again, that was very first visit of him. And again, that time there was no way to record, to listen to the recording. So in some way, his music got big success here in America. And even when he died, I have another support of this knowledge of this idea of his popularity. Sergei Rachmaninov, you recognize this name? So Sergei Rachmaninov was a pupil of his pupil. So he was Tchaikovsky in conservatory, then another pupil of him was Taneyev, and the pupil of Taneyev was Rachmaninov. And they met each other, and Tchaikovsky helped a lot to Rachmaninov at the very beginning of his career, a lot. And when Rachmaninov came here to the US first time, I suppose that was 1909, and when he came back to Russia, and he had a lot of interviews, and first what he always said, that he is really surprised how popular Tchaikovsky music is in America. And he even said that from his opinion, it's not my opinion, from his opinion, from Rachmaninov, that each note, each score of Tchaikovsky tells to Americans more than to Russians. So meaning that this music, for some reason, is better understood here rather than in Russia or in Europe. So this is just, I don't know, something what Sergei Rachmaninoff told, but I don't know if there is a secret or what, but his music lives since that time until today. And what I heard that at least before the last 3 years, this music was a part of almost all the concerts all around the US. And I suppose that now time is coming of Christmas, and we all expect that we will get some piece of nutcracker, so which is, you know, in some way related so close to this holiday that, you know, it's a part of this holiday already. And next slide, please. Here he writes in the diary, in general, I really like Americans' customs, American morals and traditions. And next, please. I have had a great success so far, and the suite is especially popular. The press is singing my praises in a way I could never have dreamed of in Russia. Next, please. If I were younger, I would probably derive great pleasure from staying in this interesting, youthful country. I will always remember America with love. And actually, he planned to come again to America, but unfortunately, his life was stopped when he was 53 only. Next, please. So, and yeah, another phrase he wrote to his nephew. I predict that I shall remember America fondly. So, what I would like to tell you here, that thanks God, thanks a conflict of Tchaikovsky and his musical boss, Nikolai Rubinstein, his music came here even earlier than to Russia or to Europe. So, and this music got to the hearts of the people, and it's still alive. And I suppose that Tchaikovsky, somewhere in the heaven, see this, that his music is respected in this country, and thank all of you and your country for this love to his music. Thank you very much. Next, please. And next slide, please. So I have also a story about von Mex and USA. My relatives from von Mex, they were entrepreneurs and businessmen, and they brought a lot of interesting things from here to Russia. And next, please. And some of them even worked here. For example, the gentleman on the right, he was a diplomat, Russian diplomat. He served several years in Washington. Actually, I'm going to Washington to give a lecture on the 11th of December. And others came here for exhibitions and for building business and so on. And one of them on the left, he immigrated here after the revolution. The revolution came to Russia in 1917. In 1923, he came here and he brought several icons, very important icons, blessed by very top-level people in Russian society. Next, please. And now I present a book, which I already shown you. So this book tells us all the history of the family and of the childhood, of the youth period of Tchaikovsky, of his transition from the jurisprudence to music, and about very important people in his life. So from this book, we can take that Russian culture is not just Tchaikovsky. There is a lot of composers. Then if we have composers who wrote operas, for example, it means that we have a lot of poets, right? And here they mention also a lot of names of the poets and writers. Then, of course, if you have operas, you have to have theaters, and you know that we have also a lot of theaters in 19th century and so on. So this book shows how large, how big was the Russian culture in 19th century, and probably for some of you it could be interesting. So this book is written again by the very best specialist in Russia for today, and it's translated into English. I suppose it is, my English is not good, but I suppose the translator has done a good job. So I invite to pay attention to this book. Next, please. And I have another confirmation of popularity of Tchaikovsky in very different countries. For example, I have a big collection of coins and medals with Tchaikovsky portrait. And I have some surprises there. You all have coins, right? What normally you can see on your coins? Some noble people from your history, from American history. Have you ever met on your coins somebody non-Americans? No. So, but if you check coins in many countries, in several countries, you can find a portrait of Tchaikovsky. For example, in my collection, I have a portrait of Tchaikovsky on the Chinese coin. He never been in China, but he is so much respected there that they have a coin with Tchaikovsky portrait. And another sample, which is for me is even stronger and more interesting, there is a coin of Turkey. Turkey is our next door, but for some reason, all our history, all our centuries and centuries is just a history of wars, nothing more, just wars. All the history. And even in this case, Tchaikovsky has his portrait on their coin, the government coin. It's not just somebody's medal. So for me, it means that culture is probably the only way to keep relations between nations, even if politicians cannot manage these relations. So sometimes we can rely only on cultural links. Next, please. Yeah, that's it. So we have no time. I can speak about Tchaikovsky for weeks, and we are limited here in time. And I have at least 20 different lectures about Tchaikovsky, like his family in detail or his personal life. I don't know, for example, do you know that Tchaikovsky was married all his life, for example? Or many things which are beyond our normal understanding of the personality of Tchaikovsky. And again, Tchaikovsky is not just a person who left us a huge legacy. Tchaikovsky himself was a very, very interesting person. And once we study this biography, we build our better future because we allow ourselves to admit some things which probably will drive us to better results in our life. So if you have time, please read about Tchaikovsky, and probably this will help you in your family relation as well, in your future, in your career, or whatever. And now we ask for the last piece of music. So what was it?
This is the Barcarolle, June from the season.
Ah, okay. Thank you very much. Ah, it's written here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Excuse me. Let me give you these flowers. Is a sign of appreciation from all these people. Thank you very much for your play tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you. So if any question appears, so I would be happy to answer you if you have any questions. Maybe here, maybe later, so up to you. And another, yes, of course. And another flower comes to the host of this event. Thank you, Tamara. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So if there is any questions, if some of you would like to take a picture with the original photograph of Tchaikovsky, this is 19th century, it's 150 years old, so you can come here and take a picture just for the memory. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry? Picture of the buck, of course, of course, of course. You have a question?
I believe you said, and I may have misunderstood, that you said Tchaikovsky was married. Tell us a little about
A story about the sad story about Tchaikovsky marriage. So actually, there was a woman he loved, and this marriage didn't happen, unfortunately. That was a French singer, a lady. And he was even blessed by his father, but for some reason something changed, and there was several people who was against this marriage, and this didn't happen. And then when Tchaikovsky worked with the Pushkin Onegin, Eugene Onegin, you know this opera, he literally fell in love with Tatiana, and he hated Onegin. And during this period, he got a letter from a relatively young lady who graduated from Moscow Conservatory, where he was a professor. And she said that she loved so much Tchaikovsky that if he didn't pay attention to her, she will kill herself. She wrote 2 letters, and after the second letter, he came to her to speak with her, came to her home, and after this meeting, she tells, you visited a non-married woman, now we have only 2 ways, or we make a family, or I kill myself. Yeah, so, and this marriage came to his life, and that was a big tragedy, because he lived with her only 2 weeks, and after that, he felt something wrong with his conscience and brain, and thanks to Nadezhda von Meck-Mani, 2 of his brothers took him to Switzerland, and he stayed in Europe for 7 years, escaping from her. And there was a lot of ideas why, and he spoke with his friends, why he cannot communicate with her. And nobody could understand and explain why. And Nadezhda von Meck offered a way how to divorce. She offered to pay to that lady 10,000 rubles. 10,000 rubles was equivalent of 5 houses around Moscow. That was big, big money, very big money. And she agreed, that lady, Tchaikovsky lady, and she agreed. And when she came to a notary to sign the document, she said, yes, I'm happy and I'm ready to take this money, to accept this $10,000, but I will do this if Tchaikovsky will come back to the family. So these things can give us understanding that that was a particular person. And finally, after several years, the secret box was open. She was sick, so her last 18 years she spent in the special hospital for psycho or whatever people. So she was, yeah, that kind of person. And she didn't give divorce to him until the end of the life. And she got 3 babies from who else? Nobody knows from who. Yeah, not from him. Yeah. Any other questions? It is so difficult to come back. It is so many things which we are not able to understand. And I study history for many years, and the more I study, the more I understand that it's impossible to judge many things and to admit or whatever many things, because we cannot feel that time, we cannot understand what is not written in the books, because all the politics always was something like not public discussions, and why this decision or that decision had been taken, nobody knows. As a Russian, I'm not happy that we lost this land, but this is a historical fact, so what can I do? So, and I've never been here. I visited California many times. California I like very much. I hope that I also like Alaska when I discover it. And it is what it is. So no comments about that. So I'm not a... we have so much land. So we are missing population for this land. So we don't need more land. So if somebody now blame us that we are working to get more land from our western next door, we don't need land. So we have plenty of them, believe us. Okay, any other questions? Yeah. Yes. Of course, it was after he passed. This happened 1940, when he got his 100th anniversary, 1940, in Stalin period. Yes, absolutely. Yes, he came to the very first conservatory. He was a very first student, and he came to St. Petersburg Conservatory. He graduated from St. Petersburg Conservatory, and he was immediately invited to a very new Moscow Conservatory. That was the second one. So he became the very first professor of Moscow Conservatory. By the brothers, by the brother of the founder. The first was Anton Rubinstein, and St. Petersburg, and in Moscow was Nikolai Rubinstein, brothers. Yeah.
I met you last night and got the book, and I've read it, and it's sort of like comparing or filling out a movie to a book. You've added a whole lot of depth to the book.
Thank you.
Did he grow up in a musical family? Was he exposed to music as a young person?
It depends what we understand under the name of musical family. So those times, all the noble people, they played this or that instrument. So his father and mother, they played instruments. The mother also sang. So they did love music. So his father was an engineer, a very talented engineer, and even more talented manager. So he grew up so much, his very big plant which he managed. And they were also surrounded by other educated people from different countries, because his father managed a huge plant, maybe 5,000 people for those times. It's big plant. And there was a lot of invited engineers from different countries like Germany, France, UK, and all of them brought their knowledge and of music. So he grew in not professional music family, but of course, since the very, very childhood, he liked music, and music came to his head. And from the very childhood, he got very first impression of music was Mozart music. And that was a special device which provided, let's say, generated a kind of music which were similar to Mozart. That was not a recording, that was something else. And Mozart was his first love in music. And second was Glinka, is the name of a Russian composer, Mikhail Glinka. That was the first live performance he met in his life. So these two persons, Mozart and Glinka, were for all his life was very famous, very number one, this couple of composers, the beloved ones. So answering your question, they were not professional, but they did love music, and they provided their love of music to him, and they tried to do their best to give him opportunity to study piano. Thank you. Thank you, Alaska. Thank you, Anna. Anna Werner, who invited me here. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening.